Yeah, I've seen, I don't know if there's correlation or causation, but the people that didn't stay around are the ones that are the most successful, at least on paper.
100%.
I don't burn the bridge with the B guys. I just don't hang
Yeah.
out with them. I just don't
Yeah,
spend time with
exactly.
them because they're going to come around eventually. It's not going to be me who makes them come around, right? I'm not out there
Mm.
fixing. We're not going to have B.
You're not the life
We
coach.
can't make a B and A.
What was some of the hardest lessons you've learned?
Mm, yeah.
Is that in the consulting service space, if you ever want to do an agency or whatever, you're always capped at time, right? So you only have so many hours in a day. Fucking like Molly May, if you know if familiar with her, you only have 24 hours in a day. But basically, you're capped on time, but also on that you need to do so much input. There's always intro calls. You need to do the work, whatever. So moving into that digital product and creating a digital product that sits on the internet and sits there is the next happy medium for someone to engage, someone to buy something that you can quote unquote wake up in the morning and have money in your bank account, which
Yeah.
is awesome. That is actually the best approach. That it takes a little bit more skill because you need to essentially be able to sell the product before you even you need to sell on its own without you trying to sell it. And for us, the best part of being able to sell something is face-to-face interaction. Also on a
Yeah.
call, having understanding people's pain points, their problem statement, and being able to solve it. The thing with this is that a digital product is really good for something like a podcast whereby you can't get your agency package of $5,000. In that case, a course for 150, 200 that does a specific thing
Mm.
is seems like a good happy medium. It's hard to get something that's completely correct though, like fine tuned for that problem statement. So it's a bit more difficult.
Yep.
In a careers context, it seems difficult to be able to even hypothesize what sort of digital product someone would get because a careers a career like experience is very personalized, right? And I'll give you a good analogy. Fitness plans or fitness coaches will obviously do like, plans, whatever. Now, those coaches, I had recorded with a guy during the week, was telling me that they could have 100 clients. Man, all they're doing is changing fucking numbers in an Excel spreadsheet for macros, right? But you'll see some of them come out with, ebooks or some shit like this. Those products usually perform really poorly because people are looking for a personal experience versus a random thing on the
Well, they
internet.
don't want to do the work too. That's the thing.
E- exactly. They need someone to hold their hand for it.
Exactly.
So this is a challenge when you're making something that's completely digital. I have been thinking about a few things, and I do have a few things even kind of scoping out at the moment. Um, but it's going to be hard to get really people behind it unless you're able to get your face in front of them first, I suppose.
Also, if you're not going to make 5, 10, 15, $20,000 on it, it's not gonna, like, it's not gonna be worth it to sell 5 for $100, right? Like, it's just not
Yeah.
gonna be feasible. Like, that's why I don't have a course about podcasting because there's 40 free ones. I think most of them are terrible, and I think you can't get something once again so personalized from a course. But I took a LinkedIn course for $100, and LinkedIn's personalized, but I killed it. Like, I took the
Yeah.
advice and it worked. So it's not like it can't happen. But yeah, that's for the same reason I'm not gonna do a podcast course because I'll sell 10 of them. I'll make $1,000. I'd rather make 50,000. Like, I don't want to do
Mm.
it until I can literally look at it and be like, this is how many I'm going to sell, like within a pretty determined range. Like, we would, you have to match both. You have a thing that's like, I wish we could teach people to do this, but it's like, okay, now it's not specialized enough. So now let's teach video editors how to monetize or whatever. You'd have to go zoom in a little bit more. But then it's like, are you only going to sell 10 to your initial network? It's like, all right, now we're
Yeah.
running ads. Now we have a whole new business and it's taking up all their time. Yeah, so it's one of those things where like you apply the principles that you're already following, Like, once again, I'm not gonna go make a course because I'm only gonna make $1,000. I'd
Yeah.
rather do it when I can make 5,000, 10,000, and I'm trading 1 hour of time for I'll get ROI 10x, 20x, 30x. Yeah, and that's a lot of that's maturity. That's kind of business maturity. I mean, think about it
Mm.
though, like, as I'm not sure if you're familiar with Alex Hormozy, and his book $100 million offer. The Game, it's his podcast. Dude, you love this guy. You'll consume all of his stuff if I put you on. He's like, the biggest thing when you're building is saying no. is not jumping on that opportunity that we think is cool on this podcast right now
Yeah.
and just doing what we're already doing. Like if we just put that energy into our podcast coaching or whatever it is, or our show or our
Or our
podcast, like
podcast, yeah.
and I've done the same thing, dude. I've dedicated this time to make these clips and they're popping off. Like popping off for me is 2, 5, 10,000 views in the first hour, and then
Mhm.
another 5,000 in the next 3 weeks after that. Like that I've got to that point now, but only because I'm dedicated. Now I've been making clips for 3 years and they're finally starting to gain traction. It's like I'm not gonna start a new thing, you know. But that's really my big thing. Like I have a lot of rules and so do you. Like you don't do things on a whim. Like this is cool. I think
Mhm.
in like 4 years making, you know, 10, 20, 30, 40K a month, 50K a month. Let's go 100K a month. Who cares? But then once we can do 4-hour fucking work week, bro, then we'll make some cool shit like this where it's like we're
Mm.
literally dump 30K in ads and make 80, you know.
That's why, like, I think when you're not necessarily saying on the fucking climb, but when you're definitely in the mindset of like growing things or building things, you see the different opportunities and it's easy to get caught up in them. But you need to go back to the basics as to like, and I thought this with this earlier was like, what is driving the most traction for me from a career aspect, from a podcast aspect, and it's all around my podcast, you know.
Mhm.
And I've gone like super deep, man, on videos as well, like as in YouTube editing, YouTube videos. Like I do
Every
both.
day, dude, you're so consistent too. I really appreciate it.
Nice one, man. But basically, I just fucking I love it though. Like I really enjoy YouTube and I really enjoy like my podcast. And now like my sponsors are behind it. You know, so
Yeah.
have a really good sponsor who just take care of everything. You know, they're very helpful. They're just
Are
really
you
good
down to
service.
talk about like details about that?
Yeah, well, yeah, most of it. So
I
like
mean,
basically like
like how it's set up. So like is it a commission? Is it a
yeah,
monthly
yeah, yeah. So
fee or
how it works is like there's a fee. So you'll get a monthly like it's like a salary, let's say. So you just get
got it.
a flat fee
Just for the
plus
ad on your podcast.
exactly.
Got it.
Plus a commission, so commission
Perfect.
on sales. But man, like it's funny because not on my scale, but let's say you're a fitness influencer, whatever. If you're a fitness influencer and let's say you're with a like Gymshark, you know that brand, they'll pay someone like say 40K a year, okay, and then they'll hit them with a commission, and because those influencers are huge, they could earn up to man 100K a month,
Mhm.
and that's
And
not a
they
fucking joke, man.
do, bro.
And
These
they do, man.
they do. It's
The
crazy.
likes of like Steve Cook, you know, all those original guys, yeah. So like when they do like a sale for my protein or whatever the fuck it is, so that's the scalability aspect. Now, obviously, I am 0.1% at that stage, but what I'm trying to say is that even at my stage, I can see that grow. And I said it to my girlfriend. I was like, you know, to be fair, I've had a good couple of months with YouTube. I will say that, but let's say I'm averaging like 400,000 impressions a month. Okay, with that, I just thought in my head, imagine if I multiply about that by 10. Imagine if it was 4 million a month impressions,
Mhm.
right? Imagine how much money you can make off advertising, off sales, off different off your services, right? So this is what I'm trying to say to people is that like in the beginning, when you look at your ad revenue and it's like fucking 8 cents a month, you're like, oh, I might just give up and go back to my job. But it's like if you just stick in it long enough, that'll take off, you know, and you don't need to just be fully focused on that too. So we kind of looked at like saying no to other opportunities, and that's very important. But for me, like I obviously have a background in tech, so I'm not like an engineer, but I have a good understanding of UX, UI, product development, startups, like how to build things, like how to work with people. So I do kind of like romanticize like building my own tech startup, but it doesn't have to be like this super grungy 50 employee vibe. It can
Mhm.
just be a SaaS product. It can just be the likes of StreamYard that we're streaming off today.
Yeah.
$9, $27, $37 for a membership. We get it built. Might cost me like 10K to build it, 20K to build it. And then from that point on, unit economics man kicks in. We just need more people to get on, get on, get on. And then at that point, then it's operating pretty well, you know. So I'm kind of thinking like that. I'm thinking
Mhm.
like maybe there's a software solution that I can do. And I've been thinking about different things, man. I've been thinking about one for podcast management. I've been thinking about a few different ideas. Um, I've been speaking to a couple of guys, but as well speaking with Tristan Pellegrino.
I love Tristan, dude.
Guy
Messaged
gives me a
him
lot of time.
yesterday. Yep.
You met him yesterday?
No, I
Nice.
messaged him. I just talked to him
Oh, I
on
missed
LinkedIn
him.
yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a lovely dude, but he gives me a lot of good time as well. But we're just kind of discussing different things, you know, and teasing it out. He used to be a software engineer for IBM. Um, but yeah, where I'm going with this point is that look, you can go as hard as you want on what you're doing, and just make bank off that. Like that's the benefit of fucking YouTube,
I
man. You can literally make
yes.
money off anything.
I have a perfect example. I have a guy who I talked to maybe 2 years ago. He said, I have this podcast. It's an equipment rental podcast. How do I monetize it? He's like, he's like, I have a few options. I can monetize the listeners, I can monetize the guests, or I can monetize the sponsors. He's like, which one should I do? I said, all three. Like, I'm
Definitely.
like, dude, I don't really know. Honestly, I remember the call and I didn't have a good game plan for him. Like, I didn't have like, you should do this, then this is that. I'm like, you're just in a great position. Like, just so you know, no podcasters in this position. Like the 1% of the 1% of the 1% of podcasters are in this position. And I talked to him 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago. He's making tens of thousands of dollars a month from the podcast, was able to quit his day job in that industry to now be the host of the podcast. People are flying him to different places, and that's all I'll say because I don't know how much he wants out there. But basically, he's like quadrupled his income, and he's doing it from a thing that he created in this one industry.
With
So
his voice.
yeah, with his voice literally and some equipment. And now he literally has the sponsors who pay to be in front of the listeners. And there's listeners who pay to be at guests because they sell to the sponsors. So it's, dude, it's literally like a genius ecosystem of the
Bro,
show.
my sorry, I did not mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
Basically what I was saying there was I have a friend um who will stay anonymous for the story, but basically he kicked off like this fucking NFT page, right? When NFT started, and he got like a flashy name for it, whatever. The page went from like 0 followers to 250K. Okay. Just blew up. And the reason why it blew up is because guys would come to them with their art. Obviously, the art looks fucking sick. It's like 3D visuals and stuff. And say, hey, can you just post this on the page? Whatever. And he was like, yeah, grand. And then people start paying to post on Instagram. So he's getting paid to essentially just post on fucking Instagram. And these guys are paying, man, they could be paying anything. They could be paying at very least a 500 or €1,000 a post. And then they're getting like 30,000 likes or whatever the equivalent is. And then he was thinking of starting a podcast around it. And then he was speaking to me about it. And I was like, oh, you need to get this microphone and stuff. And he was like, no, 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 no. He was like, someone is going to pay me to be the host of his podcast. And then people will pay to be on the podcast. So we have a host who's paying to be there. We also have guests that are paying. We'll have a fucking advertisers who will advertise on it. This is like monetization inception. And then they're gonna put up fucking posts on Instagram to get paid for as well. I was like, man,
Dude.
you're gonna make like you're gonna make like 200K a year doing
And
that.
you know what he did that a lot of people aren't doing? He picked something and he stuck with it, and he didn't change what he was doing, right? NFTs, perfect timing. He had timing, he had the concept, and he executed. Like, that's it, right? If you did it on, hey, this is a Web3 podcast about everything Web3, you're fucking shot, dude. You're done. It's not going to work.
Mhm.
Like, he went into same thing with my friend on his podcast. He said this, they said, how much for a sponsorship? He goes, 3K. Okay, no problem. Next company comes in. How much for the sponsorship? He goes, 6K. They go, yep, no problem. How much for the sponsorship? 10K. Yep, no problem. And he's running ads to all the people. So he's like, here's what I'm running ads on LinkedIn to 60% of them click on it. So like, that's part of the reach too. Like, it's not just the podcast, it's also his email list and also the LinkedIn ads that he runs, like that he designed all by himself. But once again, in this specific industry. So like, even for us, right? The course, like my course would be freelancing for wedding videographers, how to monetize that business or whatever, right? Like if I knew how to do that. Or in my case, DJing, right? Like how to monetize DJing for corporate events, right? Like the zoomed in stuff, because once again, back to the earlier point, you become the person. This NFT guy is the person now. There's a lot of other people in NFTs, but nobody's him. And nobody has that leverage and nobody has that brand. And so you want to be the person, because then the Web3 people who aren't even in NFTs will go to this guy and pay him as much as he asks for.
Exactly, and he'll end up doing some fucking consulting, man. He was flown around to, like, Abu Dhabi, he was flown all around the world, and that is
Yeah, and
absolutely
think too, Justin is a perfect Justin Yen. You're familiar with him, right?
uh,
College declassified,
oh,
declassified
yes, yes,
college.
yes. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
same thing, dude. Built it off TikTok. Just figured out He's like, I'm just gonna figure out TikToks. Figured out LinkedIn. Okay, cool. I can figure out TikToks. One of the biggest college podcasts in the world. It's the bar stool of actual educational college content,
Mhm.
and instead of pure entertainment. It's like, dude, this model being done and replicated, you know.
Yeah. I think that's what it gets into, the kinda area and kinda goal setting and even just kinda setting targets. Like, I actually had a consulting call with someone recently, a coaching call. We were going on about how, like, not setting, like, limiting beliefs that, like, you're from where the fuck are you from? Like, fucking Alabama? I'm joking, New Jersey or some
Hey
shit.
man, wait. I'm not from New Alabama. No, I'm from
It's
New Jersey. I'm from the
New
border
Jersey.
of I'm in New Jersey on the border of Pennsylvania.
All right. So we were just kind of, so you come from like a small town. I actually do
Oh yeah.
originally too. And like, there's obviously that small town mentality. Like, you should be just go to school, get a job, happy days, whatever. But breaking out of that mold and really trying to like fucking push on and trying to just get there is all well and good in practice. Like to say this is fine.
Mhm.
But to actually do it is another story. And the guy that I'm working with at the moment, like he's very young, making a lot of money in sales, like a lot. He's making probably more money than I am, to be honest. But basically, he he was saying that like he feels bad because he's making more money than his parents already, like 24 years old, 25 years old. And I was like, man, this is when you literally put the foot down and fucking push on, keep pushing on, and try and make like 500K in 5 years.
Mhm.
A year. That's what you should be trying to do, versus saying, "Oh, I'm in a great position now. I'm going to slow down." So, like, have you experienced something similar yourself and like trying to, get those extra, extraordinary goals kind of achieved?
Yeah, I've probably, I've I thought that when I didn't have a 5-year plan, that I needed a 5-year plan. And then I developed a 5-year plan, and then I'm like, this isn't even what I want. Like, I don't even actually know what I want in the 5 years, you know? But for me personally, imagine if you have that job, right? That six-figure job out of college, you're killing it in sales and working 60 hours a week or 80 or hopefully just 40. That would be great. But you're not taking off a Friday, right? You're not, spending half the day with your girlfriend on when she has a day off. Like you're not able to do that. So that's things that I think about, that like I do take liberties. Like I do that. Like it's not all the time, but I do it. But I'm able to do it. Whereas my friends who are in that position where they have a cool 70K a year, they have a new car, they have a nice condo, the whole shebang. They can't even take the Friday morning off or something, you know? So for me, when it comes to like, I was never ever in a position like that where I had like, wow, I'm making all this money. Should I just see it through and just stick to it? Like, it was never that. It was always, how do I make money from what I'm doing? Like, I don't even know how to make money. I still am learning how to make money. I was on another podcast earlier this week, with an accountant who left his job at 33 with a kid and a wife and all that, and just do his own thing. And I'm like, dude, I don't even know how to run a freaking business, dude. People look at me and they're like, oh, like in your small town, Sully's the podcast guy, Sully's the business guy. Like he knows business. Like even my partner the other day goes like, dude, you're the business genius guy. And I'm like, dude, I am compared to maybe the average person walking down the street, but like in the scope of this, I haven't barely done anything. So I'm more in the complete opposite position of somebody who is in like a six-figure job who's like, I can literally see my retirement. I'm in a position where I'm like, how do I make my own? I've been trying to make my own six-figure job just so I can take all of that. I've never taken a check, just so I can take all that money and give it to people. And so it's such a mindset shift. Like I have people on my podcast, they're like, I would never do what you're doing. And I totally get it, because they have jobs where they literally just enjoy what they're doing, and then they can just go home at 5 o'clock. And I've sure a sales job or something like that. That's like being an entrepreneur a little bit, right? Or selling anything is like has that entrepreneurial vibe. But at the end of the day, like everybody else set you up for you to succeed here. Imagine
Mhm.
you have to set yourself up to succeed and then do the work. Like, you have to build the entire company, then give yourself a job in that company, and then you might not even take that money. You might still be making the 6 figures net and just give it away to other people
Yeah.
to grow the company. So, it's just like for me, it's always been a like, how do I get my now in the last year and a half, how do I make my friends a job? How do I create a
Mhm.
job for them? Like, I've created the job, but how do I finance it now? Right? Like, what if we have down months? What do I do? Do I go into debt? Do I take out a savings? Like, what's going on? Or we have a big month. What do I do with the money? Do I bank it? Do I cash it? I have my margins. I know I want to save it. Who knows what's going to happen in business? It's like it's been a journey of trying to create jobs for myself and my friends, and then how to keep them sustainable. And I'm at the point now where I had success because of circumstance and because of the position I put myself in and the work that I've done. But that only lasts so long. Like, the ebbs and flows of life and business, they force you to continue to you don't reach a point where you're just set. Like, you can reach a point when you're set, right? But it's not going to
Mhm.
be 2 years in. For some people, it is. That's great, but it's not for
But
me.
for majority of people, it won't be, man. And it's
Yeah.
good to, celebrate successes, like to Iman Andrew Gazek, you're gonna fuck up his name again. To celebrate successes when it happens, like small successes as it goes on. But you need to be thinking always about what's coming around the corner. And I suppose that's the game you play, and that's why you bring it on yourself, and that's why, I have to admit that I'm not fully there yet. I'm not fully there at that point yet, completely. Um and maybe if it's a tech startup, maybe I have to be. I have to be out on my own because I can't, possibly build a podcast and do this and do that and do this at the same time. So there's that kind of like mindset shift. But man, think of like the breadth of experience, or not. I hate the word experience, but the breadth of learnings that you've had, right? So, like you said there about how to set up an invoice, how to pay people, how to get paid, how to get things to land in your bank account. Like
Yeah.
all these things, Mark, like you literally go to Google. That's literally what I do. It's like someone asks me how to do something. I go to Google, I try to figure it out, and then I try to get back to them within a reasonable time so it doesn't look like I was on Google.
Yeah.
That's like half of the job of having an online business. You know what I mean? It's like just
Oh,
trying to
yeah.
figure shit out as you go along, and just get it done. But I think you do need that focus though of, where you want to go to, and not thinking 5 years, not thinking that far ahead. 'Cause I know that's kind of like for me, what that can be kind of detrimental because where I'm from, there's a lot of people who will, go to the big city, go to like Dublin or go to like London, spend like a couple of years there, and then just go back to where they're from. It's
Mhm.
like the strangest shit ever. That this is such like this must be like a parental thing that's like deep in like fucking philosophy and psychology about like how people like return home. But like for me, that's just like not my kind of case. My family are very chill. Like they'd obviously like me to be around in Ireland, but this is why I'm moving, and this is why I'm always kind of traveling and stuff. So it's interesting to see how people like leave the nest,
Mhm.
come back, and then they may have that these aspects in their business too. They go a little bit ahead, but they ultimately don't push on, and I think that can be the challenge for a lot of people.
Yeah, I've seen, I don't know if there's correlation or causation, but the people that didn't stay around are the ones that are the most successful, at least on paper.
100%. And the reason why is perspective. They'll go away, they'll meet people, and you may even know Simon Ree, yeah, Simon Ree from
Yeah, yeah.
LinkedIn. So like my mate Cullum, so who I met, who's one of my best mates, he put me in contact with this guy Simon. Simon's been on my podcast once or twice. I met that guy to record a session, and I just instantly just gravitated towards him. 30 years in Goldman Sachs, started his own trading academy, has like has a lifetime of experience and just wealth of knowledge. He's like a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's like the perfect human, bear in mind. And as I told you, I'm moving to Singapore pretty soon permanently. He was the first person to contact. I was like, I'd love to bring you out for dinner. A little thank you for recording 2 podcasts and all the help you've given me over the last over the last year. And just putting myself in that bracket, I always reference it to my girlfriend. I'm always like, fuck, if I ever got like an inch of success that Simon got, I'd be in a great position when I'm older, things like this. And it's because I'm just like always exposed to these A players.
Mhm.
And Nick Haralambos, who was on my show, said this in a very he did an abrupt way on purpose. He said that he doesn't have B player friends. And when he said that, I literally went introspective and thought the exact same. He has no B player friends. He only hangs around with A players. It's a combination of people who he trains with, who he hangs out with, who he works with, who he eats dinner with, all this combination of factors. And he's left with all these people who are strong influences that he's met all around the world, and they push him to be a better person. Um, and that's the reality. I think we all know the guy who's a college footballer who was like an A player back then and then ends up just being like a loser at 25, 26. That's what can happen to you if you just hang around doing the same shit you did when you're younger. And this goes back to the very first time we fucking said at this show.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't burn a bridge with the B guys. I just don't hang
Yeah.
out with them. I just don't
Yeah,
spend time with
exactly.
them because they're gonna come around eventually. It's not gonna be me who makes them come around, right? I'm not out there
Mm.
fixing. We're not gonna be
You're not the life
you
coach.
can't make a B and A. Like if they don't change their mindset, you can if you're like, yeah, like a life coach or some shit like that. But especially who's a life coach at 23 who's killing it, and you do it to an extent, right? But the yeah, I know a lot of my B guys are going to be A guys in about 16 years after they do 20 years in this job that really just sucks. And then they are like, oh, maybe I'll invest in real estate or something. And then they'll get
Mm,
into something that will like propel them. And then at 43, they'll have a successful business or something where it's like, I started this at 21. So a lot of those B guys are going to be A guys, but most of them are still going to be B or go to C. But yeah, but that's you get people like that, and like I said, like this guy I spoke to yesterday, or the multiple people I've spoke to in all these various industries who are 500,000 a year business, $1 million a year business, $3 million a year business. I don't need to talk to a billionaire. Like people, podcasters or whatever, they're like, dude, I'm a billionaire. I'm like, that's the most irrelevant person to me. That
yeah.
that guy like did what I did like 80 years ago. Like there's no, when there was no internet. So like I'm surrounded by and I really do try to do that same thing where I at least just keep these people in my network and I just ask them questions and they're like, "You're curious? Okay, I'll get on a call with you." Like there's so much game that I've gotten, but I don't even hang out with people. So I couldn't even hang out. A B person couldn't be around me. I don't spend time with people. I'm on
Yeah.
the internet, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm making calls, I'm doing business. I have my business, my podcast, my music, my girlfriend, my side job, right? I have 5 things that I do. That's what I do. Like there is nothing else. There is no like I allot this time to hang out with my friends. I don't hang out with them. We don't spend a lot of time together. We'll all get together, we'll spend the time. I love my friends. I consider them all A players in the variables that they are. They're not all in entrepreneurship, some are.
Exact same,
But
man.
that's how we spend time together because we're fucking grinding. We're working. Like one of my friends works 30 hours a week and then he works 3 days a week at his job and 4 days a week on his business, landscaping. He has a 6-figure landscaping business with a full-time employee. Like he's grinding, dude. Like he works way more than me. Like he's
With
doing
his fucking
you
hands.
with his hands. He's not on LinkedIn posting shit. He's working. Like he's managing people. He's doing the books. Like he's doing real shit.
Yeah.
Like I said, like this internet world is literally 0.0001% of what people are actually doing, right? Like I talked to this guy yesterday. He's like, I get on LinkedIn. I see your posts. Like I don't get like he's like I'm set for life, dude. He's like I could stop working right now. I have 3 Porsches. I have a wife, kids, the whole thing. I'm done. He's like I'm good. I do half days. He's like I work 4 hours a day. Those are you never know if you didn't talk to this person because he's not out there online doing it. Like so, yeah, I feel you, man. It's hard to find those people, but when you find them, you can really
Mhm.
have developed this little network of these kind of unknown people in society, but these people who can really leverage and elevate you. And then when it comes to the people your actual friends, your A's and B's, you're going to spend selective time with them anyway if you prioritize connecting and having these real super A plus people around you.
And you don't need to be like all around sitting around a room like smoking a joint. You can just meet up once a month or once every 2 months, go for a nice dinner. Like I'm meeting a friend tomorrow night for dinner. We won't see him for a while after that. That's going to be the end of it, on a Saturday
Yeah.
night.
Yeah.
That's what happens, man. Let's discuss something around maybe around like the lessons you've learned. So you've been in this game for a long time so far. As a young dude who is 21 starting out, what was some of the hardest lessons you've learned?
Mm. Yeah. I think delegation is the first, meaning the upsides and downsides of it, right? Because when people tell you, and what I mean by that is having help, right? Like you're gonna go, if you want to go slow, do it yourself. If you want to go fast and you want to help more people, you got to involve other people. And so that was the first like real key in terms of um understanding that three people isn't three times you. Three people is like 10x. Six people is like 10, like 20x. Like 18 people is like 100x. You know what I'm saying? Like these are just made up numbers, but it isn't you have three people so you can get three times the work done. Like really, people together create a whole new level of speed and growth. And it can go the other way if you're not doing the right things, right? Or if they don't have the skills. Um, but hiring my one of my best friends from high school who was older than me, a little bit more wisdom, not as much business experience. And then my college roommate, younger than me, understands the business side, doesn't have the experience, but understands it, loves it, super creative. So I have an analytical person and a creative person. And then I have a few editors and stuff like that. But taking the business to this point, I actually realized that I did it too fast. Like people all say, like, you should delegate, like, you should hire people, you should hire people. But if you don't have, like, I didn't hire people when I was making 10K a month. I hired them when I was making 2K a month. So then I had to go out and find more work just to sustain. And they all believe it. So they're good. Right. But, and I can afford just about to like keep them going. But if I were to do it again, I would have gotten me straight. I would have been able to take a check, my paycheck from the business, my 10% or whatever. By the way, as an entrepreneur or business owner, define a percentage of salary that you take. If it's zero, it's zero. But if it's 10, it's 10. Take 10, right? Whatever that is. I didn't do that either. But my salary, I should have been to the point in business where my salary can support me 100%, no questions asked, food, rent, car, everything, not extra stuff, just 100% support. And then have this offshoot of money that you can go, okay, X amount per month. If we just keep doing what we're doing, my guys will always get this. Right. And then, hey, if we scale it back, the business still does that 10K or that 20K or that 30K a month just with me. That's what I would have done. That's where people get delegation wrong. It's not delegate. It's delegate when you have the ability to delegate. So, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing, right? So and they worked for free for a year before I even paid them. And then once I started paying them, then that's when things get real. So I don't regret any of it. Like, sure, I probably would have built it a little differently, but that was a major lesson. I can speak on other lessons too, but like this one
Of
has been
course.
the most obvious in terms of it is so amazing to not have to do that other work that now I don't have to do. Like it
Mhm.
has freed me up, but also you have to be able to support those other people so they can do that work. So,
It's a burden too, man.
and this is the thing, people think, yes, people think you create a system, it saves you all the time. No, no, no. Now you spend time on the system. It's just a different job rather than you doing the job. And now you are the system guy. Until you hire a guy to manage that system, you didn't save yourself time. You just switched what your problems are. Now
Yeah.
you're figuring out the system for these people who are doing what you used to do. You just took something that you did and systematized it and brought them in, but now you're managing them managing the system, right?
Mhm.
And then you're managing the person who managed the person who manages the system, right? Like that's how the hierarchy of business goes. So what people get wrong, I think, and I'm going on a tangent, is that people at the top, like the CEOs, like they're like, CEOs make so much money. It's like, no, Warren Buffett makes a lot of money. Warren Buffett makes way more on Apple every year than the CEO of Apple. The CEO
Mhm.
of Apple is a decision maker. He gets paid because he makes the best decisions. If you went in that position and made 50 mil, you would be fired in 6 days, in 6 hours, probably in 6 minutes, because you don't know how to make those decisions. Like people get paid for the decisions that they make. And so that Warren Buffett gets paid more because he makes better decisions, right? Like
Mhm.
that's just the facts of the matter. Like everybody gets paid for what they're worth, sometimes more, but it's whatever the market's going to pay you. So anyway, back to that point though, that's really what I learned in the past like year and a half of like, if you delegate, you better know. what you're doing and know how to do it and know how to sustain it. And if you don't have like a plan to sustain it, all of your energy and time is going to be figuring out how it's going to be sustainable. And that's a job.
Yeah, man. That's interesting because like I actually was speaking to someone on Tuesday, Wednesday about this. Someone was saying to me, they were like, "Oh, I really want to get into the YouTube game, but I have no idea about editing." And another guy I was with was saying, "Well, you can outsource it." And then he was saying, "Well, actually, no, you actually shouldn't, because what you should do is you should learn how to edit first. You should learn what you like, you learn what you don't like, and then when you have a rough idea what you're doing, then you can hand it to someone else so they can edit your videos." And I looked at that from my perspective. So for me, I obviously was fucking zero on the floor, like revenue with zero in the very beginning. And I had to do everything myself: the editing, the video editing, the uploads, the show notes, the SEO, the LinkedIn, all that kind of stuff, and the YouTube. Um, it was only until, and I kind of, I've probably probably been a little bit reversed in how you've done it. It was only until I found myself being like, why do I have no time? And is the reduction time that I have justified by the small margin of cash that I'm making? So, like for instance, if you're making, let's say, $1,000 a month and you have zero time, well, at that point, you should alleviate time and reduce your money down to 500 quid a month or whatever. So that's kind of the way I kind of got to, was like pushing myself so hard up until the point
Mhm.
that I just can't do this task anymore because it's either boring, I don't like it, or else someone could do it slightly better than me.
Yep.
And I'm actually speaking to one of the guys. Actually, it was Colin, who was on my podcast before. Great guy. I was actually on his too, and we were discussing this about video editing and reels and TikTok and shorts. And like, I would be pretty decent at editing. I would say that I do know how to edit, and I just don't have the time for it, right? And I was telling him, and he was asking me, he's like, "How'd you do this? How'd you do that?" And I was like, "Man, go to fucking Fiverr and just get someone else that's better than you." I was like, it's gonna cost you like $100 for like 5 reels, which could last you 5 weeks. And I was like, just get it done. And then he's after doing it, and the reels he's coming out with now are fucking sick. Like they're doing like they did like some he did it one example of like the Truman Show, and it was like a really well edited, like super well done edited video. And I looked at it and I was like, that's what you pay for. And he just took all the time out of it, took all the effort out of it. Some video editor made a great job with it now, and yeah, it has paid back in downloads, it's paid back in opportunities, it's paid back in affiliate links, and that's kind of where I'm at, is like max out my potential, and then when I'm done with it, just give it to someone else.
And don't hire a video editor and then edit the videos. Don't hire a video editor to edit more videos, right? Hire a video editor and then learn a higher value skill. Because what people do, and what happened to me too, is I delegated and then I kept doing the same shit.
Mm.
What's the point of delegating at that point,
Man,
right?
I think as well there, like, so the reason I was planning on saying this earlier, I forgot, was the fact that in the podcast game, that guy you were saying about making more money, like he should, get an editor and get someone to upload his podcast, be a podcast manager with the money, and he should upload more podcasts, 2, 3, 4 a week, and he just records. He's the guy that hits play, and everything else happens in the background.
I think that's what he's doing. I believe that's what it's not less. It's definitely more, because then
Mm.
more shows, more guests, more money, more ads, more everything. More
Yeah.
everything is more everything. And are you familiar with the iced coffee hour?
Nope.
Check it out. Two things I'm going to give you: Alex Hormozzi's interview on the iced coffee hour. That'll give you both of them. These
Perfect.
guys, Graham Stephan and Jack Selby, they're two hosts of this podcast, in-person podcast, super dope studio, really nicely set up. They're like, and they released their YouTube numbers. They're like, we made 200,000 this year off of YouTube. And they get a lot of views, right? But it's cool because every time they are asking this guest, like, how'd you do this? How'd you do that? And they're breaking it down. They're like, here are our numbers. And it's like, you have to be, you have to, their thing is finance, right? Like they're like finance people who have a more conversational podcast that also incorporates some finance. They interview millionaires, billionaires, influencers, all stuff like that, but they have this like money first approach. Like they're always asking how you made the money, right? And it's like My First Million. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that podcast. Like these, if you come in with that first and then do everything else, like this guy came to me 2 years ago and said, how do I monetize this, right? He didn't go build it then figure it out. He just did it as he went along. And so
Mhm.
I think that's a little something too of like, just keep that in mind. Like, always keep that in mind because at the end of the day, you want to get paid for your work. And so you don't want to get 100,000 followers and then figure out how to monetize them.
Yeah,
Like,
man.
you know what I'm saying? So, but then there's the course thing where it's like you don't release your course until you have 200,000 followers because then you'll sell 10,000 of them and make $100,000 rather than only selling 10 in the beginning. So it's figuring out how to monetize what, when. That's the balance. That's the key. Figuring out how to outsource what, when, right? That's your friend who gets 5 videos for $100. That he makes that $100 back from the videos. If he spent the time editing the videos, he would never be able to contact the company to get the sponsorship because that freed up his time to be able to focus in on the sponsorships. You see what I'm saying? So even you have a podcast making 200,000 a year, you would look at that's successful. But these guys ask every guest how they made their money, right? They're always looking. It's always that angle, right? And I'm not doing this. I don't ask my guests how they make money. Like I'm just there for the conversation. But I
Mhm.
wish in the beginning, that's another lesson that I learned where it's like, have money mindset. Don't go out and do everything for money. Just have money mindset and just keep that in mind too. And I think that's a
That's
big,
exactly
that's,
that's
that's what
exactly what I
you're
was doing as
doing.
well, man.
That's what you
No, but
did.
it
Yeah. As
sorry,
well.
I didn't mean to speak over you, but I said that's the opposite of what I was doing actually at the beginning was I was like, oh, it's fine, I'm looking to provide some good content for people. And after a while, you're like, wait, what the fuck? I want to make
No,
cash for this.
the money was just a factor. It
Yeah.
wasn't you didn't prioritize money. You didn't put money at how important money actually is. You put you put the whole thing everything else first, which
Mhm.
allowed you to get clients. Which dude, I was making $1,000 a month editing and working 20 hours a week on the editing. But
Mhm.
what am I going to do? So what I did was I brought in an engineer. I took 40%, paid him to do the rest of it, and I took my cash on the top and used that time to go make sales. So that's a delegation that I'm not like terrible at delegation. Like I have delegation that works really well. I have 2 editors that I can make 5x what they charge me. I could sell it for 5x. Like I don't. I still like have proper margins and stuff like that. Like I have delegation that is successful, and then I have delegation that's not as successful in terms of like the sustainability of it. But yeah, that right. Like if we both had that like more of that return on investment mindset, that can ruin
Mhm.
your business just like living in ROI land. But
Yeah.
if you just keep that money mindset going, I think that like yeah, you can grow so much faster because you make way better decisions. You'll make a decision that puts you in a better financial position rather than getting making things look better, right? Visually or something like
Yeah.
that. Like
It's a
there's so
business
many
decision.
offshoots. It's a business decision because it's a business and we use podcasting as like 100 examples in this podcast already, but like that's a business too, and that
Man,
yeah.
a big thing on that as well is the amount of people who don't think of their podcast like a business. This is the first question people ask
I
me
never
when I'm
did. I never did, dude.
but man, you have to. I had a post for this ages ago, and that's what I said to everyone in consulting calls is like, you have to think of it like a business. The overheads, I have my overheads, man, are like $70 a month
Yeah,
for like my actual podcast
me
itself.
too.
They're very cheap. And man, bear in mind, I run like the highest spec videos, the highest spec like quality for everything. Like I can honestly put my hand on my heart and say that you can't get higher quality for video conferencing. Like if I could do 4K, I'd pay for the 4K.
Mhm.
Um, but basically, you got to think of it from overheads, potential revenue, margins, input, time, all things like this. And when you start thinking like that, you can start fine tuning it. You of course want it to be fun. You want it to be entertaining. You want to do lots of other stuff like that. But man, like you just got to get down to the economics as well sometimes. So that's the news. I don't want to run too far over, man. I know you wanted to finish up a little bit earlier. So if you don't mind, do you want to give a bit of a small details on where people can find you, your shit, your links? I'll also have all that in the show notes too, so don't be too concerned about it.
Perfect. Yeah, man. Thank you, by the way. This has been great. Both of our podcasts, just
Yes, sir.
absolute killer, hitting on various different topics. Some of them overlap, most of them didn't. So I really appreciate that. So I'm going to plug one thing and I'll have you add this link, which is my podcast with you on my show called Bopcast. You can find that at sullybop.com/bopcast. That's SULLYBOP.com/BOPCAST. Or just Google Bopcast. It's the first one, BOPCAST. My Instagram is under Sully Bop. So if you go to sullybop.com, that has the podcast, Instagram, all the social links. And then I do similar to what Darren does. I help people launch their podcast. We do production. We have a podcast launch system. That's Podcast Principles. We also have a monthly podcast that we release. If this isn't meta, I don't know what is. A podcast about podcasting. So if you're interested in short, no BS, 5 to 10 minute videos teaching you the higher level philosophy of launching a show, the mindset, the technicals, the promotion, the repurposing, etc., that's under Podcast Principles as well. So if you Google Podcast Principles or Sully Bop, you will find anything related to me.
Sick, man. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I think we should do more sessions in the future like this, man. Freestyle sessions where we just chop shit up, just chat shit.
Because if we were on a
ideas.
call, this is what we would do on a call if we were just talking. Like there is no difference. We're just like angling it to offer a little bit more value. But yeah, man, I really appreciate the time, and it's just so much fun. And just having like we're in pretty parallel positions. Like you have your job, so it's pretty different. Like I don't have that job. I'm doing this like full time. So it's cool to have like the balance of, well, if I were you, I'd do this. And if I were you, I'd do this. And just having that those and then all of the things that are parallels that overlap too. So you get like these two different types of people in these two different types of situations doing a lot of the similar things. And just it's motivation too, man. Just sheer
and it's also fucking natural, man. Like these sessions are like properly natural. Let me stop the recording. But again, thank you, bro.